Boa noite, obrigada pela presença. É um prazer estar com vocês hoje. Eu me chamo Amanda Carneiro, sou curadora no Museu de Arte de São Paulo e esse é o programa MASP Conversas. Hoje recebemos aqui o artista Kang Seung Lee, cujo trabalho está em exibição na sala de vídeo do museu até o dia 27 de outubro de 2024. Neste ano de 2024, a programação e esta mostra integram o ciclo de Histórias da Diversidade LGBTQIA+, no MASP, além da exposição coletiva homônima. A programação inclui também uma série de mostras individuais, entre elas uma dedicada ao artista Leonilson, intitulada Agora e as Oportunidades. O Kang Seung Lee é um artista nascido em Seul, na Coreia do Sul, em 1978, que atualmente vive em Los Angeles, nos Estados Unidos. E o trabalho que ele realiza destaca histórias e experiências de artistas importantes da história queer de diferentes regiões. Ele também homenageia e promove encontros imaginários que vão além do espaço e do tempo, reunindo figuras como Peter Ojah e o Tseng Kwang Chi, o pintor Martin Wong, além do artista brasileiro Leonilson e do bailarino e coreógrafo Go Cho-san, de Singapura. No MASP, o vídeo e o trabalho do Kang Seung Lee fazem referência à obra Lázaro, uma obra que o Leonilson realizou em 1993, um pouco antes de falecer, em decorrência do agravamento da AIDS. E o Leonilson é conhecido por abordar temas de amor, de vulnerabilidade e do temor da morte. E o Kang estabelece uma conexão entre essa obra e o coreógrafo Go Cho-san, que foi um pioneiro em mesclar o balé clássico com movimentos contemporâneos de uma qualidade introspectiva. Esse coreógrafo trabalhou em companhias proeminentes, mas, como Leonilson, é conhecido em círculos muito restritos. Então, o trabalho do Kang Seung Lee lida com essas questões de visibilidade e opacidade do trabalho desses artistas. E a conversa de hoje, intitulada Constelações, explora esse universo de referências em imagens, desenhos, artefatos, objetos de arquivo e figuras que compõem o trabalho maravilhoso do Kang Seung Lee. Nessa conversa a gente vai ouvir um pouco do artista, ver imagens sobre esse trabalho e outros trabalhos já realizados ao longo da carreira dele. É uma maneira de se engajar com uma trajetória, além do trabalho que está em exposição lá no museu. Fiquem à vontade para enviar perguntas pelo chat, a gente vai recolher todas e engajá-las ao final da apresentação do Kang para discutir as questões levantadas e também o que foi apresentado. Eu espero que vocês aproveitem essa conversa, é um momento para a gente aqui no MASP muito especial, de ouvir um pouco o artista pelas palavras dele, além do trabalho. E eu espero também que quem não tenha visto a exposição ainda fique empolgado a visitar depois dessa conversa que a gente tiver. Kang, muito obrigada pelo seu tempo, pela sua presença, pela dedicação em conversar com o nosso público também. É um prazer enorme para a gente no museu ter a chance de mostrar esse trabalho, especialmente num momento como esse que celebra tanto o trabalho do Leonilson como a relação que você estabelece com o trabalho do Leonilson também. Estaremos aqui te ouvindo e daqui a pouco eu volto. Obrigada.
Thank you, Amanda, for the lovely introduction. And I just want to thank the team at MASPI. It has been an incredible experience to work with the team at the museum and also present my work next to the amazing retrospective exhibition of Leo Nielsen. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm going to share some works through my slides. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. So let me start with this first slide. I make project-based work, so usually each project has sort of research process, and within the project, I research and sort of reposition different queer archives and collections, usually connecting distinct geographies and experiences. And I believe we can forge kind of new side of knowledge in the process. This is a picture of my exhibition at the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art in Seoul that happened late last year through March this year. I'm gonna share a few recent projects and works that kind of represent my whole practice. Then we go from there. I wanted to share this particular work titled "Who Will Care for Our Caretakers?" It's an embroidery work that's in on this particular fabric called sambe, which is usually used as funeral shroud in Korea. And this work kind of both encrypts and memorializes this text, "Who Will Care for Our Caretakers," by Pamela Sneed. Sneed is a New York-based queer writer who's in her 60s now. This sentence comes from one of Sneed's poems written during the pandemic, in which she speaks about her experience of the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s and 90s. At that time, so many friends of hers were dying of the disease, and at the same time looked after by a community of people, including Pamela Sneed. This sentence comes from her friend Craig, who was dying of AIDS, and he was saying that who will care for all these caretakers who are looking after us right now. In that work, the text was transcribed and written in what I would call Martin Wong American Sign Language font. This is a font that I designed based on Martin Wong's paintings from the 1980s and 90s. And this font appears throughout my recent projects. So the process is that the font is derived from Martin Wong's paintings, in which he would incorporate English text along with American Sign Language, sort of, using each characters. So it almost looks like creating a rhythm of raised and crooked fingers, in my opinion. And I hand embroidered the text on sambe. Another work that I want to share is this succulent plant. It's a work of art titled "Archive in Dirt" by my friend and artist Julie Tolentino, and it's also a living cactus plant. We call it Christmas cactus here in the US, since they bloom during the winter time. It's a living plant Julie revived, which had been propagated from its mother plant that had originally belonged to the activist Herbie Milk. I believe some of you have seen the documentary film about the activist Herbie Milk. This cactus came from her friend, who's an archivist in the special collections at UCLA, who acquired cuttings from Herbie Milk's ex-roommate in San Francisco, who took care of the plant after Milk was assassinated in 1978. I saw this plant for the first time at the exhibition titled "Altered After." in 2019 at Participant Inc. in New York City that I was also part of. The plant was quite stressed at the time and sort of broken in small pieces with a very small new leaf in pale green color just coming out, as you can see from the picture. Since then, with the help of Julie and another friend of mine, Young Chang, who runs a space called Commonwealth Council in Los Angeles, I became one participant in the evolution of the work through making ceramic planters and repotting the plant, and also taking care of different cuttings and sharing them with other members of community. I also have documented the growth of each plant. So it's an ongoing project of mine. This is an example of the work from 2020 to 2022. So I documented small cuttings growing in different places through drawings in this case, and also an embroidery. And on the left-hand side, you will see a stack of prints that documented all the other cuttings growing in many different parts of the world, and also my correspondences with the caretakers of the small plants. I also have exhibited this plant in many different exhibitions for the past few years. This is an installation view of an exhibition at the New Museum in 2021. I remember at the time I hand carried the plant from Los Angeles to New York. And during the run of the exhibition, the curators and other staff at the museum took care of the plant. So when I show this plant in a gallery or museum, I'm thinking about the responsibility of caring for this plant, but also passing the responsibility to the staff temporarily, and it becomes sort of labor or care given by a community of people that way. This is a WhatsApp conversation that I had with a curator at the National Museum in Seoul, where a cutting of the cactus was on view. So I find the way we care for this plant is very similar to how we write and rewrite history in some ways. Because as resilient as the succulent plant is, it does need caretakers, and constant attention in order to survive. And this plant is almost all the time in transformation, like it's growing and shooting new leaves and things like that. I think that's very similar to how our bodies and our memories and histories are always shifting and in transformation similarly. Oh, I'm going to start from this project titled The Heart of Hand, which is very much related to the work Lazarus, that the video installation that is currently on view at MASPI. So this project pays also tribute to Ko Choo-san, a pioneering Singaporean-born choreographer who died of AIDS at the age of 39 in 1987. Ko Choo-san performed and choreographed for many prominent ballet companies throughout Europe, Asia, and the United States during his lifetime. He performed and choreographed for American Ballet Theater, Houston Ballet, and many other ballet companies that we know. However, his legacy kind of remains largely absent from the American dance history since he died in the 80s. And it's actually quite surprising how unknown he is, especially considering that he was kind of like rising star in neoclassical ballet in the 1970s and 80s. And I think there are several reasons for that, and I've asked his old friends about that as well, and they had some theories about it. One being because of his diasporic identity, he didn't really belong to any one place. He was born in Singapore, but he worked in Europe and in New York City for a long time. so it was difficult to be historicized by one sort of thread of history. The other reason I believe is that especially like his peers, his queer peers at that time, including dancers and choreographers and writers and critics of his generation, was really affected by the AIDS epidemic, and many of the communities were wiped out. So afterwards, historicization of Gochusan's work and the work made by his generation of artists was very much delayed. So I would like to tell you about how I got to know his life and work, and it actually speaks volume about a lot of other things, I believe. So in 1981, Mikhail Baryshnikov was artistic director and a principal dancer at American Ballet Theater. And they commissioned Gochusan a new original work titled Configurations. The work was very much focused on male dancers and their technically challenging movement, which was quite new at the time because most classical ballets were still very much female oriented. And the same year, a British TV station was filming a documentary about Baryshnikov. And it included about 10 minutes long clip in which Gochusan is doing rehearsals with Baryshnikov and giving an interview about the work and he also configurations, the ballet piece they were doing together. So I watched the documentary on YouTube, possibly about 15 to 16 years ago. And I was like, who is this person? Very flamboyant and incredible dancer with like beautiful movements. So I tried to find information about him, Googling his name, and learned a bit about his life from the Wikipedia page and things like that. But the research really didn't go too far until I met this queer Singaporean friend, curator Wong Bing Hao, who also took an interest and studied to help my research in 2019. So through the connections made by Bing and other Singaporean queer artists, I was able to get in touch with Ko Soo Kim, who is Gochusan's sister, and Yanek Shurgan, was Gochusan's best friend, and a few other people, and learned about Gochusan's last years in New York City and the fact that he actually had a long-term partner, Robert McGee, who you can see from these pictures, who also died of AIDS several months before Gochusan did. And that how their friends also looked after one another during these times in the 1980s. So one of the works that I made for this project was a video installation titled The Heart of Hand that was made in collaboration with Joshua Serafin and Nathan Mercury Kim. Joshua is a Filipino dancer, choreographer based in Belgium, originally classically trained in ballet and contemporary dance, but became a theater and performance artist. And Nathan is also dancer, choreographer, and filmmaker who is based in Los Angeles. So I wanted to make an artwork that embodies through a spectrum of many different emotional and physical states of belonging, particularly, that is also kinship with Gochusan's life and work. And the work was also in collaboration with many other artists from my queer community, both in Los Angeles and Seoul. So, for example, Kirara, a transgender composer musician based in Seoul, took inspiration from Samuel Barber's music that was originally used for Gochusan's configuration. But then we sort of studied these materials together and made a soundtrack thinking about queer life and communal state, of temporality, particularly about dance floor and clubs. So the music is quite danceable. And for this video, I also used this text composed with the Martin Wong font that I mentioned earlier. And the text here you see is from the writings of Javier Villurrutia, his poem Nocturne, which was written in the 1940s. Villurrutia was an openly gay writer and poet who wrote like a very prolific number of poems that were about memory and touch and queer life and things like that. And I thought that was very close to the spirit of Kochusan's work, as well as all the other components that are related to the research. The project also included works on goatskin parchment. So each work is made on a parchment from one animal. So that's why like all of these works have different shapes. So in this case, the piece was made in graphite drawings and also watercolor, and I did small embroideries in 24 karat gold thread, and then there was also like small assemblages for each work. And as you can see in most drawings, human figures are erased or blurred, and I made these drawings with these blurry figures for each goatskin work. So the gold thread that I use in my work, you can see one example here is actually antique gold thread that's about 100 to 110 years old, that was manufactured in Kyoto in the early 20th century. And I also use sambe, which is the hemp fabric that I mentioned before. And there were several works that also memorialize Gochusan's relationship with partner Robert, friend Yannick, his friend Yannick Schergen, and also his close relationship with his sister Ko Soo Kim, who was also a ballet dancer and later became a co-founder of Singapore Ballet. Soo Kim just turned 80, and Gochusan would have been 79 if he was alive, I believe now. And there was this embroidery work made based on what's called Banish movement notation of one of Gochusan's works. So Banish movement notation is a notation for dance movement, and it is similar to musical notation, but for body movement. So the first line is the movement of head, then shoulder, then upper body, and lower body, and feet. And this is a short notation made by Yannick Schergen, Gochusan's friend, who attempted to report Gochusan's work using the notation. And then I made that into gold thread embroidery on sambe. There was also this sculptural installation that consisted of embroideries, pebbles, dried seeds, and other found materials. Dried seeds and plants for this work was collected from a place in Singapore called Fort Road Beach, which was a gay cruising ground for many decades. And until the 1990s, Singapore police had this terrible practice. Basically, they would send police decoys who were sort of pretending to be gay and cruising at these sites, and someone approaches them, then they would arrest these people, which was really brutal practice that happened in many other cities in the world. One thing that was different in Singapore was they would also publish the names of people who were arrested in Straits Times, which is the state-run largest newspaper in the country at that time. And because of that, a lot of people were outed and had this terrible public shaming they had to experience. And so I was really thinking about the memories of all these people who went through those times and their erased experiences and memories, all of that while making this work. This is an installation view of the exhibition in Los Angeles. Another installation view. This is the work titled Lazarus that is on view at MASP currently. So after doing this rather long research about Kochusan, I really wanted to make a work that connects his life to another person who was working on the other side of the planet. And this work, as Amanda introduced, pays tribute to Kochusan as well as Jose Leo Nielsen, the artist whose work is on view in the retrospective exhibition at MASP currently. So obviously Leo Nielsen lived the other side of the wall, mostly in Sao Paulo, but also he was traveling a lot in the other parts of the world. And he made works predominantly autobiographical about his life and experience as a gay man. And both Kochusan and Leo Nielsen died of AIDS-related illnesses. So this piece takes inspiration from Kochusan's original ballet Unknown Territory that was originally made in 1986. And I worked with my friend, choreographer Dawn Jung, who created sort of this duet dance and gestures and movements. So very minimal and intentional sort of movements that is about queer intimacy, legacy, and the states of suffering and belonging that we were thinking about all these different emotions. So in the video, Lazarus, two dancers interact with this costume that is reproduced after Leo Nielsen's final work, Lazaro, which is a sculptural installation that you can see at MASP. It's in the last room of these 5 rooms in the exhibition, because the exhibition is chronological, and Lazaro is the last work Leo Nielsen created right before he died. So this sculptural installation is made of these 2 men's dress shirts sewn together at the hem. This is a copy of the work in Samba that I made. So there's a picture on the left is Leo Nielsen's original work. And then on the right is also on view at MASP. It's a drawing of the original work Lazaro in graphite on goatskin parchment. And there's a small embroidery on the left-hand side that reads Lazaro, but written in Martin Wong ASL font. So when I made this particular drawing and also the replica of the sculptural installation, I actually had not seen the work in person. So when I visited the museum last month, that was actually my first time seeing this particular work, in person. But when I saw the picture of the work first time a few years ago, I immediately thought that this work was made as a shroud, meaning that Leo Nielsen knew that he was going to die, and making this work as sort of shroud for his body. But he also made this work for not one person, but for two people in this case. And I thought that he was thinking about someone else. It could be his partner, it could be his friend, or it could be all the other people who are also dying of the disease in the other parts of the world. But also he titled the piece Lazaro. Lazaro is a person who returns. So I think he was thinking about resurrection, maybe not sort of physical way of coming back, but it's more of like spiritual way of resurrection, or his legacy kind of living on after his death. And at the time, I was having three institutional exhibitions happening all together, one in Paris, one in Los Angeles, and another one in Seoul. So I kind of really wanted to make three different works related to Leo Nielsen's Lazaro. And the works would be shown simultaneously in different parts of the world. So this one is an installation view of my work at the Hammer Museum in Los Angeles. And the floor work is an installation based on the patterns I created with the help of my friend's mother, who is a pattern maker, just using the photograph of Leo Nielsen's work. So since we only had this small photograph, she made these patterns based on the size of my body. So this work includes this cut sambe patterns with gold thread embroideries and other fossils and seeds and plants and all the other collected materials from different sites of queer memories. One particularly from Elysian Park in Los Angeles, which is a cruising ground of the past, but also present. Then later, the culmination of these past projects became this central work in my installation for this year's Venice Biennale. So the work is on view currently in Venice. So this particular work incorporates many different narratives. So I was thinking about juxtaposing Leo Nielsen's work, but also with many other queer figures that were the subjects of my past projects. They are so their lives and works and stories and memories are incorporated in this installation that includes drawings, watercolor, and collected materials, embroideries, and hanging materials, and all these different continents. And the people, particularly who were prominent in this work as Ko Chu-san and Sang Kwong-chi, Martin Wong, Leo Nielsen, and also Korean writer Jun Soo-oh, and many other people who died as a result of the AIDS epidemic. The work included many sambe elements, multiple graphite drawings on ghost skin parchment, and as I mentioned, organic materials were collected. So that includes dried plants and seeds from the park, Elysian Park that I mentioned, but also Fort Road Beach in Singapore and Namsan and Tapgo Park, which are two public parks located in Seoul that were also very popular cruising grounds in the past. And the works also were juxtaposed with various texts written in American Sign Language. another installation view. And this is the third and kind of the last um, video works that I created related to Gochu-san's work. This one is titled Skin, and it's a new video installation that I just finished in August, just a couple of months ago. And that's currently on view at a museum in California. So this work kind of came from all my experiences of working with dancers from the past two projects. And from the process, I learned about dancers' bodies and dancers' bodies that are particularly aging and shifting all the time. I also learned that most dancers are dealing with injuries throughout their careers or lifetime, and they really remember very well where they have injuries in their own bodies and are very much aware of that all the time while practicing, but also while performing um, and while living, basically. So I was really um, interested in the muscle memories that live in this aging body, particularly of an older queer dancer's body. So I was thinking about the body as sort of um, personal and political register that is always in transformation as we are aging. Um, so in the project, I was looking at skin, wrinkles, and scars, many other things on your body as sort of witnesses to our memories, our traumas, and our very complex moments of pain, but also pleasure. And I thought of that as sort of mode of knowledge that is inscribed into the body. So for this work, I worked with something just came up. I worked with Meg Harper, who just turned 80. She danced with the Merce Cunningham dance company. Merce Cunningham was very well-known choreographer, queer choreographer who was based in New York City. So she danced for Merce Cunningham Dance Company for over a decade and also taught at the studio over 30 years. Um, Meg also danced for Lucinda Child Dance Company and also Robert Wilson for many, many years. So I was really thinking about her body as um, a body that experienced all different times, particularly in relation to her queer community in New York City and all many of her friends who died of AIDS in the 80s and 90s. Um, so we sort of worked together for a while, and she created these gestures and dances um, from her own body language and muscle memories. So we were very careful about not doing too many rehearsals while making this work, and we're really focused on what could come out from her muscle memories naturally. Skin was also composed with this animated text. In this case, I used text from this book about Ed, which is a book Robert Gluck, who's a writer who's based in San Francisco. And this is a particular book that recounts his relationship with the artist Ed Ulrich Sky, who was Gluck's lover and friend, who also died of AIDS in 1994. And the text was transcribed both in English and also ASL. Okay, it's almost 3:48. I'm gonna just briefly share this project because I think it's very much related to what I have shared. So this will be the last project that I will share. Titled Permanent Visitor. which is about the work and life of the photographer Sang Gongqi, who was born in Hong Kong in 1950 and died of AIDS in 1990 in New York City as well. So this is pictures from a very short video from 1982 in which the photographer Sang Gongqi appears in this uh, live TV show that was hosted by Castiles Nekas, who's on the left-hand side asking Sang Gongqi some questions. And as you can see, Gongqi is wearing this badge on his left chest. And then Nekas asked question, I see that you're a visitor here because the badge says it's a visitor badge. It says visitor. And then Guangxi answers, yes, I'm a permanent visitor here, which is a very symbolic moment, I think, in his work as well as the time in New York. So these are my drawings of Guangxi's work, and one is his self-portrait, and the other one is Guangxi with his sister Muna. So Sang Guangqi was born in Hong Kong in 1950 and lived and studied in British Columbia, Canada, and Paris, France before relocating to New York City in 1978. So he was very much transnational. He was important part of this East Village avant-garde, movement that included many artists. Keith Haring is one of them, very much known. And this is a picture of the community of people. And on the right-hand side, you can see a picture of Keith Haring that was taken by Guangxi. Guangxi was really known for his artistic persona that he names love for art. He also called himself ambiguous ambassador or inquisitive traveler, and he created this formal but kind of really awkward and funny self-portraits in front of all American tourist destinations and world sites of tourism as well. He always wore this costume called Mao suit. At the time, that was the image of Chinese people in the West because China was so closed for a long time and was just beginning to open up. So he was kind of putting his own body in front of camera, but also playing this stereotype of Chinese person. And at first sight, these images kind of look like just satire about Americana, but it also becomes a sort of documentation of these different sides of what America means or what it means to be an immigrant and also a kind of tourist in this space all the time. And at the time, he claimed that he's wearing these dark sunglasses in the picture all the time. That sort of prevents the viewers from interacting with the work, the person in the picture, and then therefore his body becomes a performative object. So this is the process of making this body of work. So this particular work is from Cottonfield, Tennessee. So I think he was really thinking about the history of slavery in a country where he's also an immigrant and how he's also dealing with this history of the land as an immigrant, as a visitor at the same time. So this is a process. I digitally erased the human figure from the original picture and then making a copy in graphite of that image. Share a few other pictures. in the series. Two works that I made based on a picture of Kongji wearing this t-shirt that says Love Art, which was a model of his. And then also making another embroidery work on Sanbe that says visitors, love art, permanent visitor, which are all sort of phrases that he used to call himself. And then it also became this neon work that I exhibited and so all right, so I'm gonna pause here because I think I have spent all 40 minutes to share my work, and we can talk more, and I'm gonna answer some questions and
Sim, muito obrigada, Kang, por compartilhar tantos projetos incríveis dessa carreira tão prolífica. A gente recebeu um comentário na conversa que eu achei tão gentil, e a pessoa diz, tanta gentileza em seu trabalho incrível, como um mundo de gentileza, e ela pergunta, como um mundo de gentileza pode ser criado pela arte? E me interessou essa pergunta porque tem uma dimensão de ativismo bastante significativa no trabalho que você realiza. E, ao mesmo tempo, fala de histórias que são doloridas, processos que não são exatamente fáceis. Então, ouvir um retorno que olha para o seu trabalho a partir dessa lente da gentileza, achei interessante, porque a sensibilidade é um dado, de fato, é um trabalho muito sensível, muito cuidadoso, muito meticuloso na sensibilidade. Mas a gentileza é uma questão interessante, bastante pertinente, considerando a profundidade e a dificuldade de certos temas que você aborda. Então, gostaria de te ouvir um pouco sobre isso.
thank you for the comments, and also, the idea of kindness is, very important. Something that I would also call care. Kindness comes from care. When you care something, that comes out in the form of kindness, I think. And care is something that we all experience all the time, right? Like we're born as babies and then we grow, and then in the process that we always need care. And a lot of times, care comes from our parents and our family members and through our biological connections, but also particularly in many different queer communities, care comes from a family that you created, because a lot of times historically queer people have been discriminated against, and they oftentimes they are also rejected by their own family members who are biologically connected to you. However, at the same time, there's always this possibility of creating your own family through the community of people who are not biologically connected to you, but also, who really care about you. So I'm thinking about particularly connections and care given to you through these kind of connections, and how it is so important for all of us to have that. And anybody who has experienced that kind of care also knows that you have to pass that care to someone else. Sometimes it's other people in your community. It could be people who are aging. It could be the next generation of artists and older people. I'm also really thinking about, the comment included the care, the kindness related to activism. So I'm thinking all the time about the care given to the memories and legacy of people who I'm talking about through my work. Um, I was able to learn about Kochusen's life or Leo Nielsen's work and Leo Nielsen's life um, through people who really cared about them, right? So there were people who really cared for their archives or their artworks or the memories of these people. So I think that I'm only able to learn about these people through other people who really cared about the memories and all the works. So the 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 work that I make is only possible because of these people actually who care.
Obrigada, Kang. Isso me faz relembrar ou retomar a ideia de constelações, que foi como a gente intitulou essa conversa, e como alguns dos seus trabalhos também, séries de trabalhos, são intituladas. E eu fiquei pensando isso enquanto ouvia você, que há uma imagem possível de pensar nessas constelações, que é a imagem de uma estrela cadente com aquele brilho que desaparece, né? Às vezes lenta, às vezes rapidamente. Isso também me remeteu à ideia de memória. Então, essa imagem apareceu enquanto você conversava, porque a memória no seu trabalho opera em um tempo muito específico. Às vezes é uma memória de um achado arqueológico, ou seja, uma memória de milhares de anos, e às vezes ela é uma memória que diz respeito aos anos 80, né? Então tem tempos que são tempos específicos. E, essa junção de memórias também, além da junção das figuras que aparecem no seu trabalho, é recorrente. E, e aí me chamou a atenção, eu queria perguntar para você, como é que você enxerga a conexão entre a memória e a materialidade no seu trabalho? Porque os objetos que você utiliza para falar do trabalho dos artistas também é sempre específico. Às vezes você desenha, às vezes você borda, às vezes você cria uma linguagem, às vezes você é, cria uma coreografia, às vezes você faz esse trabalho em parceria com outras pessoas, às vezes você se coloca num processo mais solitário, mas todos eles me parecem muito associados a essa materialidade. Então, gostaria de ouvir você um pouco mais sobre essa relação, a relação que você cria entre a memória e os materiais que você usa no seu trabalho.
Thank you for the question. Is incredibly complex question, but also I think it's a question that I ask all the time while making work and in preparation of new projects and things like that. So I want to maybe talk about two different things. One is the work that I make in the studio, a lot of times alone, in which I use sort of labor intensive materials. So I do lots of drawings, oftentimes in different scales. It's like it could be very intimate size, small. It could be also really large. So I'm always playing with the scale as well. Either making it something very small or something really large. But I think in both scales and including embroidery, it's very similar process for me. I also think of embroidery as drawing process, which is quite intimate, but also it takes a lot of time. But I'm making lines through embroidery as well. So my drawings or embroideries almost always have reference images. So I usually work with images that already exist out in the world. A lot of times those are someone else's work that came before me, or it could be an image that's already there. And I'm sort of thinking of this process as my own attempt to embody these memories or histories through the process of using my own body. So I'm carefully looking at these images and because I'm sort of recreating, right, and making copies of these images that's in front of me. So that creates kind of really different relationship with the images. I'm also embroidering in this very slow pace of text or something that's already in front of me that exists. It's someone else's writing, someone else's artwork. So it's kind of like my own attempt to how to insert myself as an artist in this like new thread of sort of history that I'm trying to talk about, and also um, putting myself into this lineage of history, particularly in relation to queer histories. But also there's other part of my work that often incorporates like found materials, collected, organic materials, seeds, and plants, also related to the sites of queer memories, but also these are organic materials. Sometimes that also includes pebbles, rocks, or fossils. Um, and I think I'm looking at these materials sort of witnesses to our human memories. And we often think of these materials as non-human beings that do not have memories, but also I'm thinking these materials that sort of exist much longer than humans on this earth. So I'm thinking about this different scale of time when I'm bringing in these materials. So the rocks that existed like through geological times, the fossils that was created like 300 million years ago. In that case, I'm also suggesting looking at our histories from a much larger time frame. So thinking beyond our own human cycle of life, which is about like 80 years old now. And we often think of or look at our experiences from that perspective of one life cycle. And a lot of things become what we could call failures or erasures, and we feel like we failed at writing these histories, or we let all these memories of, these many figures in my project sort of slip away, which could be considered failure. But also, through my work, I would like to suggest we look at all these events from much larger time scale, and then look at it, I don't know, from different perspective, and many things become possibilities instead of failures, I think. So that's probably what I'm trying to do through bringing in different materials and different processes in my work.
Thank you, that was great. Desculpa, foi ótima a sua resposta, Kang. Eu vou encerrar agora com um último comentário que apareceu no chat do YouTube e que eu acho que você já abordou, na verdade, mas só para reforçar. É, a pergunta se relaciona com o lugar da natureza no seu trabalho. Então, acho que faz referência tanto ao cuidado com materiais orgânicos, a pessoa fala das vagens, da folha, das plantas e também da pedra, da pele de cabra, e pede para você falar um pouco mais sobre isso, por favor.
Yeah, that's such a good comment. Thank you so much. Maybe two things that I can mention. One is the form of the installation. So when you look at most of my work, there's always space of using the floor. And oftentimes there are works that we are accustomed to look at from walls, such as drawings and or embroideries are placed on the floor. And I'm thinking a lot about seeds and gardening in the process of that, and looking at, in my mind, the floor space as um, a place that is fertile, and the works placed sort of as seeds. And I'm hoping that it could be a metaphor of caring for a garden or soil or seeds that could be memories, and we can nurture these elements and these memories, and something will come out and grow out of this fertile ground. So I'm thinking of my work, each work as sort of different seeds that will flower one day, perhaps, or that will have their own lives, talking to us. Um, and then organic materials and fossils and other materials all play like one part within the project. And I think that could be my answer to the question.
Muito obrigada, Kang. Foi um prazer ouvir você. Seu trabalho é absolutamente maravilhoso e o jeito como você fala sobre ele também. Para quem tiver ficado ainda mais interessada, a exposição fica em cartaz no museu até o final de outubro. Então, está todo mundo convidado a visitar. A sala de vídeo também tem um trabalho que o Kang Seung-lee realizou especialmente em relação ao Leonilson e que faz parte agora da coleção do museu, o que também é uma grande alegria, o que quer dizer que quando a exposição se for, há um legado, uma memória, retomando um tema da nossa conversa, que vai ficar no acervo do museu para vocês visitarem em outro momento também, mas não percam a oportunidade de ver o vídeo que está agora em cartaz. Kang, obrigada mais uma vez pelas suas palavras. A gente se encontra aí em outros momentos do mundo. Boa noite para todo mundo.